Going off of bears' priorities of survival, the first thing we need to think about is our protection. And a key element of that protection is shelter. Now we can spend all day building a really big shelter that's really pretty, but that takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And in a survival situation, every second counts. So we need to think about the functionality of our shelter. What do we need it for? Well, usually it's to escape harsh weather, or it's just to get some rest. The location of our shelter, we need to start thinking about that. We want to be quite close to a water source, but not too close. You find that there's much higher concentrations of biting insects and mosquitoes about 100 to 200 meters away. So in torrential rain, those rivers can actually burst their banks. So we want to make sure we're also uphill from that water source. Also, that high ground is going to give us other benefits as well. We'll be able to see rescue coming at us, they'll be able to see us, and if we're self-rescuing, we'll be able to see a clear line of sight for where we're headed. Also, low valleys are more susceptible to damp, frost, and much lower temperatures. Once we've found a prime location for our shelter, we want to start thinking about positioning. One key tip is to face the entrance of your shelter away from the wind. Main reasons for this being, if you've got a fire outside your shelter, all that smoke doesn't blow directly in, and also if you're escaping harsh weather, that doesn't get blown in as well. If you're making a shelter in woodlands such as these, make sure you have a look up where you're building your shelter. What you're looking for is deadfall, any big heavy logs that in high winds could fall, cause some serious damage or worse. There are loads of different shelters we could go over, but in the spirit of keeping things simple and dynamic, I'm going to show you a classic A-frame. Probably my go-to shelter. It's very hard to get wrong, very quick and easy to make. As long as you've got a sturdy structure underneath all your foliage, you could just keep piling stuff on top of it, and the more you pile on, the more weatherproof and the more warm it's going to be for you during the night. So we're looking for a location. What we've got over here is a pretty good spot, I think. We've got a nice Y in the tree here for our central strut, no deadfall above us, nice flat ground underneath, so I think this could be a good spot. Now, one mistake I see people making time and time again is they don't measure their shelter beforehand, so they end up with their feet sticking out one end or their head sticking out the other end, or in a group situation, not everyone can fit into that shelter, which is a bit of a nightmare. So one thing you need to do before you build a shelter, once you've found your spot, is lay down on the floor like this, okay, and just mark out where your feet are, okay? And then you can jump up and you know exactly how big your shelter needs to be and exactly where you're going to build it as well. So the most important element of our A-frame shelter is going to be our central strut. And this feels like a nice strong branch for the central strut. It needs to be long enough obviously to just overshoot our marker. Because remember, our feet are going to be sticking up, so we want to leave enough room for that. And we want it to be nicely wedged into our Y shape up there. It's a nice snug fit. There's going to be a lot of weight on this, so you really want to stress test it as well and make sure that's not going to snap under the weight of the foliage and things that are going to be popping on top of there. Okay, once you've got that in there, what we want to be doing is finding some other branches, and we're literally just going to be stacking these along to build our shelter. So longer ones up the top. And like I say, you can make this really pretty, you can spend all day doing it, but it literally just needs to be able to cover you. And all this is going to do is hold up your foliage. Once you've got the bare bones of your shelter sorted, you want to start thinking about waterproofing and weatherproofing it. In deciduous forests like these, all these leaves are perfect. Literally, all you're going to be doing is grabbing big piles, start at the bottom of your shelter, and just piling it on top. Doesn't matter if there's sticks in there, whatever, just pile it on top. Like I say, it doesn't need to look pretty, it just needs to be functional. It needs to keep you warm and dry. So as we're chucking all this foliage on the top, you may see that it's falling through the gaps and falling onto the floor in your shelter. That's actually pretty good. We lose more heat through the floor than we do on the roof in our shelter. So we want to make sure that we've got loads and loads of bedding in there for a nice, comfy and warm night's sleep. So when we're building our shelter, it can sometimes be quite hard to see where the gaps are from the outside. But if you come inside, you can see where the light's coming in. That's where we want to put loads of the foliage on top. So we want to keep on at those areas until it's completely dark in here. Then we know it's completely weatherproof and it's going to be nice and warm. So if it's really coming down, it's really raining hard, what you can do is get live leaves and lay them in a bit more of a tiled formation on top. And what that will serve to do is just filter and funnel that rain off the top. Better still than that is if you've got one of these survival blanket. I'm going to get this out of the pack, unfold it, and these are huge, such a small packet, And you can lay these over the top, like so. And not only is that going to keep the rain off you, it'll also be super visible from the air. So anyone trying to rescue you is going to see that from miles off. Also, to best utilize this piece of kit, if it is raining, you'll create a funnel on one side, so all that water coming down can come down to one point and into a water collection vessel. So you're also addressing your water priority of survival. If you're not going to use that survival blanket on the outside of your shelter, you can bring it in with you, wrap it around yourself, and it's going to keep you nice and warm during the night. Where we are right now, the main thing I need to protect myself from is the weather. But in different locations around the world, there's other things you need to protect yourself from and other things you've got to think about. Think to yourself, what do I need protection from? How can I make that happen? As Bear always says, improvise, adapt, and overcome.